Welcome back, guys. My name is Angel. Today's episode of Dev++ is going to be talking about building a JSON REST API with Go Engine. So we're going to continue our previous project. This part 4, we're going to be talking about authentication with JWT. So what we're going to be doing today, we're going to continue our previous project, the one that we have been building, repos on GitHub. I'm going to post the links in the description of the video. Install the dependencies that we need for working with JWT, creating our login web service for generating the token, and creating a function for using in the other web services to validate that token. So without further ado, and before we jump into the code, I want to talk to you a little bit about authentication and authorization. I've been talking about this in the other videos with Python and JavaScript, but it's important for you to understand these two concepts, especially if you're new with web services and API building. Right? Authentication and authorization is usually two terms that are used interchangeable. They are usually used in the same context, but they mean two different things, right? Authentication is basically it refers to who is doing the call to the web service, who is using the web service, and authorization refers to giving a person or giving an identity that's using the web service or no identity at all. Do you have permissions, or does that identity has permission to execute on a specific web service, right? So two separate things, but normally they're used combined. They're used together in order to protect APIs from, undesired access and, unauthorized access and that sort of stuff. All right, let's jump to the code. First of all, open my Visual Studio Code and my terminal here. Already in the in my folder, my workspace folder. All right. So if you remember, this is on the GitHub project. This is our task project. We have a struct. Let me walk you through a little bit to the project. We have the struct for task. This I believe that we're not using anymore. Let me just find our references. I don't think that we're using this. That we can just get rid of this. Let me just put a comment here. See if we get an error, just in case. We have a connection to MySQL. Remember that we did that on the previous session. And we have our all web services for creating, reading single task, updating a single task, and deleting a single task. Here we have our main function who starts the server, and then we have the definition of our routes and paths mapping to our handlers, right? So how do we start? First of all, we're gonna start by creating a new web service, a post web service, and I'm gonna call this login, right? I'm gonna call this function a login handler. Right? What I'm gonna do now is just gonna duplicate this function. I love copy and pasting. And I'm gonna call this login handler, right? Fine. So what I'm gonna leave out in this video, just to not to make it that long, is how you're gonna query your database in order to check that the user who is making the login is actually a valid user, right? Basically, I'm gonna put some comments here just in case. First of all, validate that the email and password sent are valid, right? Second, query the user's database to check for an email and valid password. Don't forget to hash your passwords. It's not going to be in the scope of this video. And third is going to be generate the token for the authenticated user, if found, of course, right? So we're going to leave the query part outside of this video just because we did some queries last time. So I hope you guys understand that part. If you want, you can just copy it from other web services here from other handlers, right? So first thing that we're gonna do, I'm gonna create an struct, right? Just to map our login web service. I'm gonna call this login input, right? It's gonna have a username, right? I'm gonna map this to a username, right? And it's gonna have a password. And I'm gonna map this to a password. So this login input is the one that I'm gonna use for this login handler, right? So instead of new task, I'm gonna call this new login input. Login input. I'm gonna bind this here. New login input, right? I'm gonna change the error message here. Logging in, right? And this is what where we're gonna work our magic, right? So remember, first validation. Let's put here to do one validation. Then we're gonna work our second step. We're gonna put here the second step, query the users. I'm just gonna leave that up above, right? And third, generate a token, right? Generate the token. So for that, we need to use a library that I researched here. It's a pretty cool and popular library. It's called Golang JWT. I'm just gonna copy and paste the string for installing this. So I go to my project, I paste this, we got the library. Perfect, super fast. So what I'm gonna do now is, as we have a bunch of code already in this file, we actually add too much. Just gonna create a new file called JWT Go, right? We're gonna create two functions, right? We're gonna create a function called encode JWT, right? That is gonna transform my username into a token, right? String, potentially an error if something goes wrong, right? Also, we're gonna create another function called decode JWT. In this case, it's gonna take a token, right? String. And it's gonna return an interface map or with an error, right? Okay, so I'm gonna implement these two functions using the library that we just talked about. First of all, we are in the package. Let's call this package main, right? So first of all, in order to encode this, we're gonna use the example provided by the library, right? Which is basically creating the JWT token using their example. Okay, so let's start by creating a token instance. New with claims, right? First of all, we define the sign-in method, right? H56, and then JWT map claims, right? Which is gonna be the username. Basically, the claims are the information that you want to put on the token. The expiration is gonna be, we're gonna use a time module. It's gonna be now.add time minutes, right? So we got our token instance. Once we have our token instance with our claims, what we're gonna do now is token instance dot sign string, right? And then we need to pass the secret key, right? That's a step that we forgot to do, right? In the .env file, I'm gonna create a secret. I'm gonna call this secret key. For now, I'm just gonna use, let's see, very password generator, right? So I'm just gonna use a really long string, like this. Secret key. Now, what we're gonna do is to also pull that secret from our environment file. So I'm gonna pull the secret, say here, secret key, secret, I believe it's secret key that I use, right? Let's check it out. Just gonna copy and paste, easier, secret key, OS, right? Just gonna print this in case that we got it wrong. Secret key, right? And then our secret key converted to bytes. Okay, so we sign a string, then we have our token, an error that it might be returned from the signing, right? So typical Go pattern, right? If error is not nil, we're just gonna return nil and the error, right? Else we're gonna be returning the token and nil. Oh, right here is a string, so we have to just return an empty string, right? So we implement the first or in code, right? So from our handler, login handler, I'm gonna be calling the code JWT with the username. We're gonna put this in the token. I create a token, and I'm just gonna return the token on the request. It's gonna be pretty simple. So for the decode JWT, right? It's a little bit more trickier. So given a token, right? We're gonna also create a token instance. This could also generate an error right here. So we're gonna have the parse method, right? Which is gonna take the string, right, that we have right there, the token, and then we're gonna have to pass a function which is gonna validate the key for the token, right? So let's go and do this. So first we move the token, right? We send the token, and then we need a function. Let's check out the signature of this function. Key function. The key function returns an interface and an error, and it takes a token instance. Okay, so I'm just gonna copy and paste this signature. Right? This is a from the JWT package is a token. Fine. So we got this, right? So we received the token, right? Kiss token, right? Internally for the function. So the first thing that we're going to do with this token is validate that the algorithm that we're using is the same one that we used to sign the original token. That's a validation that we have to do here. So let's say if this is different, this has a name, right? If this is different, so I'm just gonna return null and an error. I think JWT has a couple of errors here. Yeah, error. Let's call this signature invalid. Yeah, I'm gonna call this signature invalid, right? If everything works well, we have to return the secret key to this function. So we return what we did there, right? Byte. And again, this secret key that we have here. For the .dmb, right? And no errors, or nil, basically like an error. So if error is different from nil, what we're gonna return here is nil for the interface, in an error saying, oh, we don't need, just gonna return the same error here. Fine. So second thing that we need to validate is token instance is valid equals true, or as I prefer is different than true, right? Then we're gonna return nil and a JWT error saying invalid I guess this is as cool as it can be. Else, we go with token instance.claims and a nil as an error. Okay, fine. So we have our Go functions here, right? The encode JWT, it takes some claims. We can put more information here if we want to. The expiration, right? The secret key, we're gonna print it in case that we're printing it wrong, and then we return a token, right? And then for the decode, right, for validating the token, we receive the token, then we send it to this function to tell us, hey, is this the one that we generated? It's gonna tell us yes or no. So let's go ahead and do this. So first of all, for the login, we take username and password, and we generate the token here. So we're gonna go token error equals encode JWT, right? New login input, username, right? So if error is different than nil, we're gonna do context JSON message bad status bad request message. Yes, we can do the error, right? And return, right? If everything goes well, everything goes successful, the data is gonna be the token. All right, let's test this out. So we're gonna go here, we run the code, 104, oh yeah, missing that comma there. JSON serialized given the struct, okay. So we're just gonna simplify this. Gonna use a token only. So we run this, seems to be running fine. We open our project or endpoint or web service. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna duplicate this too. I'm gonna duplicate this, I'm gonna call this login, right? And this is gonna be /login. Let's say that we test this. It did generate, oh, because we're not doing any validation for username and password. I think that's a good thing for now. We print the secret. Let's go ahead and do, rather than this, call this email, right? Email password. So what we're gonna do here is take the email, right? And what we're gonna do is generate a new token, email password, right? Let's say that email password you check with your database, it works. And then if we send, we generate a new token. Perfect in this space. Now, let me just remove that print from there. Now the fun part, right? So now that we have a token that has been generated when someone does the login, people are gonna use that token to communicate with our API. So basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna do in our handlers to validate that that token is actual valid. If it is, then what we're gonna do is allow the user to do whatever he's trying to do. If it's not, we're just gonna bounce the user into a bad request or forbidden response. So let's do that with the read task first. So remember, normally when someone receives a token, and this is a convention that is used in all over the world, right? And you wanna make a request, you send a token in a header, right? It could be someplace else, it could be the body, it could be the URL, but usually you send it off the header because that's kind of like a convention, right? There is a specific header for doing that. It's called authorization, right? So we get the authorization. We normally put the it's called kind of like the schema of the token, but it's usually called bearer, or there are different special words that you use for identifying different types of tokens. For now, we're not gonna fall into that detail. We're just gonna send the token as it is in the authorization header, right? So we have the body here. We make the request. It works for now because we don't have any tasks. Let me put some tasks there. Creating some task, and once we get something here, right? So let's gonna go ahead and try this. So the first thing that I want to do is go to the gene context, which is gonna have the headers that I want to get, right? First, the header that I want to get is the authorization header. Right? Let's call this authorization header. And just to start debugging this, I'm gonna print it. So let's see. Set. Okay, so this is not the way of request header for getting the headers. Authorization header, right? And I'm gonna print that. So let's refresh the app. Let's send this again, right? And if I see here, right, I'm getting the authorization header from the request, right? So what I'm gonna do with that header first is to get it and use the decode function that I just created in order to see if it's a valid header or not. Okay. So if you see here on our print, this is returning a slice. So just because a header could contain multiple values. So I'm just gonna use the first value, which is the authorization header that I want. So I'm gonna use a decode JWT function, right? It's gonna take the authorization header in the position 0, right? And it's gonna return, let me see what we did here. Yeah, the claims and an error. So we go back and we say, we're gonna get the claims or an error, or sorry, an error, right? First of all, if we get an error, we're just gonna return a bad request and an error. Here, we get an error from here, I'm just gonna get forbidden, status forbidden, message error, right? The claims, we're just gonna print the claims for now. I don't think that that's necessary to use right now, at least not in the scope of this video. We're just gonna have it around. All right, so let's shut this down. Let's put it again. Now I'm gonna make this request. Oh, I forgot to return. Yes. Return here. Get it back. Okay, so we saw that we got our token from here, but it seems to throw an error. Let's see what's going on. So we refresh this, we send this here, and it says that we have an error, right? Let's go ahead and debug this. Let's see what's going on here. Maybe I made a mistake here with the decode function, maybe. Okay, let's debug that error. Go run. Send this token is expired. Oh, we created like too long ago. So let's do a couple things. I'm gonna increase the time to live here. I'm gonna put 60 minutes. We're talking a lot. So what I'm gonna do, I don't need to refresh this. I'm just gonna generate a new token. We generate a new one. We copy this one. We go to the get request where we have it implemented. We paste this here. We send it. Token is expire. So won't use token. Oh, right. We're putting this wrong. This has to be a Unix timestamp. So let's see if now it works. We run it. Let's create a new one. And now we get the task. If you see, we print the claims here, which is the expiration date and the username, right? For now, it's just gonna be task, doesn't matter. We can generate a new one here just to make it look cooler. Password, my super pass, right? I'm gonna generate a new one. Just gonna copy this. Put it in the get request, header here, send this, and now I can still see my task, right? If I change something minimal here, like I put it just like a 1 there, it's gonna be an invalid token, so we're gonna get an error here. If I put it back, and then I can still see my task, right? So basically, in order to protect our web services, we include this, decoding feature. Put here the claims. Let's just clean this up a little bit. And we just return a status forbidden. We can do this with a middleware. Gene allows us to put like middlewares on different forms. One option could be just put in a function that returns another function, and you take all your handlers there, and then you just do the validation. But that's not going to be in the scope of this video. For now, it's just going to be, adding the code to this web service. You guys can try to go ahead and do it for the rest of the web services. We're going to do it eventually. We're just going to continue this project. But for now, I think that that's good. So before we wrap it up, remember guys, if you're enjoying this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to keep doing videos for Go, Python, and JavaScript. In the future, we're going to jump into some Web3s, but please leave a comment if you want to see any specific video or any specific technology, or even if you have a comment under this, code. Thank you for watching. See you next time.